Now the third rule has to do with the sound, the inflection ease. Now when do we use this ease? The ease is used with the following sounds. Now, when the following sounds end a word in the singular, then they will be followed by the is in the plural. Let me give us some examples to illustrate the point I'm making here. Look at the following. You have the word like church. The church. The last sound in church is cha, which is this, cha. Now, the plural of church in the written English word is churches. You have es. But this es is transferred by what as is. So we have churches, churches, churches. You have, look at this, bridge. Another example, bridge. The last sound in bridge is what? Is j, j. Now, the plural of bridge is what? Bridges, bridges. Now, again we had es or s as the case may be, but it's pronounced as what? As bridges, bridges. So IZ is added what in the spoken English. Now another example is when you have like words like what? House, house. There are two transitions of house. Is either you can write it this way or you have what? S. So in the plural of house is what? Is houses, houses. So you either have it what as houses, and so on and so forth. So the rule says that whenever we have any of these sounds, these 6 sounds, ending a word in the singular, then we are going to have this inflection is in the plural. So this concludes our discussion about plural markers. Next we go to past tense markers. Past tense markers. Now, just as we have said concerning plural markers, we can as well make plurals of words in the spoken English. When we want to make plurals of words in written English, we have to be mindful of the fact that we have 2 types of verbs. We have regular verbs and we have irregular verbs. Now, under regular verbs always end with what? With the suffix ed. That is in written English. So I say killed and I say killed. That's the past tense. But in spoken English, once again, we have 3 plural markers. They are different from the plural markers that we have. We have 3 markers. They are different from the markers that we have for plural markers. Now the markers we have here are ta, da, and what? And id. Now ta is what? Is a voiceless plural marker, while da is what? Is a voice plural marker. And again, I will talk about the id in the later. Now there are 3 rules once again. The first rule is just like the first rule when we are talking about plural markers. Whenever a word ends with what? A voiceless sound other than ta. Whenever a word ends with a voiceless sound other than ta, then it will take ta. That is the voiceless marker ta in what? In the past tense. Let me give us an example. Look at this word. This is present, and here you have what? Past. Now look at this. You have clap. As you transcribe clap, you have clap. The last sound in clap is what? Is tap, tap. Now the plural of clap is what? C-L-A-P-P-E-D. That is in written English. Now in written English, before we form the plural and spoken English, we have to ask ourselves, the last sound in clap, is it voiceless or voice? You recall that pa is a voiceless sound. So because of that, it will take the inflection T. So this is what we have in the plural. We now have claps. So instead of ed that we have here, we now add what? T. It becomes what? Claps. Claps. Not clap. Claps. Claps. Now another example is pass. 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 P-A-S-S. The translation of pass is pass. The plural of pass is what? P-A-S-S-E-D. P-A-S-S-E-D. Once again, we need to ask ourselves, the last sound in pass, is it voice or voiceless? You will discover that voice, the S sound here, or sound here, is voiceless. And because of that, the rule says that whenever we have a voiceless sound ending a word, then we will take what the voiceless past tense marker term in the past tense. So we have past, we have past. So the ed is pronounced as what? As ta. Another example is when we have this word preach. What is preach? The last one in preach is what? Is cha. You discover that cha is what? Is a voiceless sound. And the plural of preach is what? P-R-E-A-C-H-E-D. So we have ed again. Now because cha is what? Is a voiceless plural marker, then whenever I want to turn it to plural, I call it ta. So it becomes preached. She preached to me. You have preached. She preached to me. So that is the rule concerning about the first rule. Whenever we have a voiceless sound ending a word in the present tense, now for the past tense, it has to take a voiceless past tense marker term, and that's why we have this. Now the second rule of past tense markers has to do with, it's not the opposite of what we have the other time. Whenever we have a word ending with a voice sound in the present tense, then it should take the voice inflection. Remember, that is voice inflection. That whenever you have a voiced word other than D in the present tense, then we take the voice inflection that in the past tense. Example of that we have present and we have past. Now look at this. We have damned. Now what is spelling of damned? Damned. The past tense of damned is what? We have ed. Now because the last one here is what? Is ma, and ma is what? Is a voiced sound. So this ed is pronounced as what? As da. So it becomes what? Damned. Now look at the other one. We have tag. The translation of tag is what? Is g. So the past tense of tag is T-A-G-G-E-D. T-A-G-G-E-D. Now we have ed. Now because the last time in the present tense of tag is what? G. So if you take the voiceless inflection da in the past tense, it becomes what? Tags. Remember I said that all vowel sounds are voiced. So it is possible for you to have a vowel sound ending a word in the present tense. For instance, we have a word like boo. If you transcribe boo, this is what you have. The last time here is oo, the long oo. Now what's the plural of boo? B-O-O-E-D. Booed. Now the last time here is what? Is voice. That's the vowel sound there. So to take what the voice inflection does, so it becomes what? Booed. The man was booed. He was booed. And so on and so forth. Now, the last sound, the last rule, has to do with what? Ed. Now, this rule is very, very simple. That's the third rule. It says that whenever we have a word ending with either ta or da in the present tense, then to take the inflection ed in the past tense. Whenever you have a word ending with what? Ta or da in the present tense, to take the inflection in the word in the past. For instance, when we look at the following, we have present and we have past. Present, past. Let's consider the example want. W-A-N-T. To transcribe want, this is what you have. Want. The past tense of want is W-A-N-T-E-D. Now, you need to ask yourself, you find that what the last one they got is ta, which is what we have here. We said that whenever we have a word ending with what? T or da, ta or da, it will take what? E in the past tense. So because of this word is now pronounced wanted, not wanted. Wanted, that's the ID there. Wanted. Now, look at another example. Look at this example. Dread. D-R-E-A-D. Now, this is what you have for transcription. Dread. The last time is what? Is da. So any word that ends with what? T or da in the present tense, we take eat in the past tense. So this is what we have in the past tense, D-R-E-A-D-E-D. It becomes what? Dreaded, 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 dreaded. Another example is when you look at another word like faint, faint, faint. This is the translation of faint, faint. Now, the past tense of faint is what? F-A-I-N-T-E-D. So it is pronounced as what? Fainted, fainted, fainted. Another example is the word plead, P-L-E-A-D. And the transcription is as follows. Now, the past tense of plead is P-L-E-A-D-E-D. Now, the last sound in plead is the. So, because it is a voiced sound and it's letter D, it will go with what? With the each sound. So we call it pleaded. He pleaded with us not to be angry. He pleaded with us not to be angry. And this concludes our discussion of past tense markers. Now next we go to stress pattern. Stress patterns. Now stress. What do we understand by stress? Now the English language is a stress-timed language. Now what do we mean by stress time? It means that stress is very, very important in the distinction between words in the English language. So we have two types of language in the world. We have some languages that are stress time and others are tone time. For instance, the Yoruba language is what? Is a tone time language. In other words, you can have a word like as follows, IGBA in Yoruba language, and depending on where you put the tone or the tone of the voice that you employ, you can come up with different words. You can come up with what? Time. So you can call it what? Igba. Time. You can call it Igba, that's what? Calabash. Calabash. You can call it what? Igba, that is what? 200. You can call it Igba, which is what? Garden egg. Garden egg. And so on and so forth. So that shows us that in the Yoruba language is a tone time language. It is a tone that I apply to this word that gives me different form of word. Now, but the English language is a stress time language. For instance, when I have a word like what? EXPORT, depending on where I put the stress, then that will show whether it is a word that is a noun that I have in mind, or a word that is a verb that I have in mind. For instance, if it is a noun, I will call it what? Export. Export. The stress will be on the first syllable. That is a noun. But if it's a verb, I will call it what? Export. Export. The stress on the second syllable. So it is the stress that helps me to know that this word I'm talking about is either what? A verb or a noun. So what is stress? Stress is the pitch of the voice that is applied to a word that makes it different or that distinguishes it from other words. Stress is the pitch of the word of the voice with which what a sound is produced. The pitch of the voice with which what a sound is produced. And the domain of stress is actually what? The syllable. The domain of stress is the syllable. Now, what is a syllable? A syllable is the smallest divisible unit of a word. The smallest divisible unit of a word. That's what we call a syllable. Now, in the English language, irrespective of the number of syllables that you have in a word, only one syllable is stressed. For instance, you may have a word that has about 5 syllables. Only one of those syllables is stressed. So, and the first syllable will be stressed, The initial syllable, that is the initial syllable, the medial syllable may be stressed, or even the last syllable may be stressed. But in some languages of the world, we have fixed stress, maybe at the end or at the beginning. But in the English language, any syllable can be stressed. The initial can be stressed, the medial can be stressed, and the final sound or syllable can be stressed. Now, we have three types of syllables. We have what we call monosyllabic words. Monosyllabic words. That is, those are words that are made up of only one syllable, like boat, leave, write, take, come, and so on and so forth. Those are monosyllabic words. In other words, we don't need to bother ourselves with monosyllabic words because we have only one syllable, so the stress may be on on the one of the syllable. Then the second one is what we call the bisyllabic word. Bisyllabic word. Now these are words that are made up of two syllables, like words like teacher. Teacher is made up of two syllables. Baby, that's made up of two syllables. Wonder, that's made up of two syllables. When you have market, that's what made up of two syllables. Then the last set of syllables are what we call polysyllabic words. Polysyllabic words. These are words that are made up of more than two syllables. When you look at something like employment. How many syllables do we have there? We have employment. So we have three syllables there. Now, polysyllabic words include words like what? Employment. That is, words that are made up of more than two syllables. Other examples are words like suggestions. Words like initial. Words like powerful. Words like communication. Now, these are words that are made up of more than two syllables. Employment has how many syllables? We have three syllables. Suggestions has three syllables. Initial has three syllables. Powerful has three syllables. Communication has 5 syllables. Yes, 5 syllables. Now, let's talk about stress properly. Now, we're talking about word stress now. Word stress. Now, there are no textbooks, or I want to say that when you talk about stress patterns, the rules are not hard and fast. They are not really fixed. You can have exceptions, but what we want to do in this particular clinic is that we want to give us some few hints to help us to know when to stress and what to stress whenever we come across certain words. Now, I want to start from two syllable words, that's the bisyllabic words. Bisyllabic words. Now, as a matter